My name is Joanie Calem, and I am so thankful to be a guest on SHRADDHA'S Kathaa program. I have never met SHRADDHA, but she is one of my new friends because of this crazy time we're living in. It is January 21st of 2021. And I know that all over the world we still have this awful pandemic, but there's all kinds of beautiful things that have happened because of the pandemic where people have started to figure out that we actually really need each other. We need to work together. And so we've got Zoom where we can talk with friends on the other side of the world, and we've got YouTube and Facebook and all these different ways to connect with each other that we didn't know about before. And it's all because of this awful time. So even in those awful times, sometimes there's a glimmer of something beautiful. And I want to tell you a story about that. I want to tell you a story about a gecko. The gecko's kind of grouchy. The gecko complains a lot. And this is a story that comes from a place called Bali, which is over there in Indonesia, which is the other side of the world from where I am. I'm in North America in a state called Ohio. So I love this story. It's from the other side of the world from me, but it's not, because it's all about how we're all connected and how Gecko discovers that. So this story, it takes place back in the time when people and animals spoke to each other regularly. And Gecko lives in a village with a bunch of other animals and a bunch of people. And one night, he can't sleep. And he's pretty grumpy about that. And so he goes over to the chief's window. Gecko, Gecko, Gecko. And he sits outside the chief's window and he sings, Gecko, Gecko, Gecko. And he wakes the chief up. So the chief comes over to the window and he looks out and he says, Gecko, what's going on? I can't sleep, says Gecko. Fireflies blinking round my house, blinking their lights on and off. You're the chief, make them stop. And the chief says, Gecko, that's the problem? The fireflies are blinking? Yeah, says Gecko, and they're waking me up. And chief says, okay, Gecko, I'll speak to the fireflies in the morning. Will you please go home? Gecko says, Gecko, Gecko, Gecko. Now, you guys can sing that with me every time that comes around, okay? Gecko, Gecko, Gecko. So he goes home grumbling, and in the morning, the chief wakes up, and he calls to the fireflies, and he says, Fireflies, is it true that you're blinking your lights on and off outside of Gecko's house every night? And the fireflies say, oh, yes, chief, that's true. And the chief says, well, why? Why are you doing that? And the fireflies say, well, see, every afternoon, Buffalo leaves a big pile of manure in the road. And we blink our lights on and off so that nobody steps in that, because that would be bad. And the chief says, oh, that is really considerate of you. Thank you so much for doing that. Fireflies, you keep on doing what you're doing. So the chief goes off on his day, and the fireflies go off on their day, and the chief forgets to tell Gecko that he spoke with the fireflies. So that night, Gecko, Gecko, Gecko. Gecko wakes up the chief again, and chief comes over to the window and he looks out and he says, oh, Gecko. And Gecko says, yeah, I can't sleep, says Gecko. Fireflies blinking round my house, blinking their lights on and off. You're the chief, make them stop. And Chief says, Gecko, I spoke to the fireflies. They're doing a really good thing. See, Buffalo leaves piles of manure in the road every afternoon, so the fireflies are lighting those lights so people see that and no one steps in the manure, because that would be bad, right? And Gecko says, so then talk to Buffalo. Tell Buffalo to stop leaving piles of manure in the road every afternoon. Chief says, okay, Gecko, I'll speak with Buffalo. Will you go home now? Gecko, Gecko, Gecko. So Gecko goes home. And in the morning, Chief wakes up. He calls to Buffalo and he says, Buffalo, is it true that every afternoon you're leaving big piles of manure in the road? And Buffalo says, oh, yes, Chief, that I am doing that. And Chief says, well, why? Why are you doing that? And Buffalo says, well, see, the rain washes big holes in the road every afternoon, so I'm filling them up so that people don't trip in those holes and break their ankles. Oh, says Chief Buffalo, that is so kind of you. Thank you for doing that. You just keep on doing what you're doing. So Buffalo goes off on his day, and Chief goes off on his day, and forgets to tell Gecko that he that he spoke to Buffalo. And so that night, I bet you can guess what happened. Gecko, Gecko, Gecko. Chief drags himself over. It's now the third night in a row, and he looks out the window, and Gecko looks up at him. I can't sleep, says Gecko. Fireflies blinking round my house, blinking their lights on and off. You're the chief, make them stop. Chief says, Gecko, I spoke to Buffalo. Buffalo's doing a good thing. He's filling up the holes that rain makes in the road every afternoon so that people don't trip in those holes and break their ankles. And Gecko says, so Chief, talk to the rain. Tell the rain to stop making holes in the road every afternoon. Chief says, okay, Gecko, I will speak with the rain. Now please go home. What does Gecko say? Gecko, Gecko, Gecko. So, in the morning, of course, Chief wakes up. And he calls to the rain and he says, Rain, is it true that you're making holes in the road every afternoon? And Rain says, oh, yes, that's true. And Chief says, well, why? Why are you making holes in the road every afternoon? And the Rain says, well, see, my best friend is Gecko. And I know that Gecko loves mosquitoes. So I'm making holes in the road and filling them up with the water so the mosquitoes have someplace to breed so that Gecko will have his favorite food. Ha ha! Chief starts laughing. Oh, thank you, Rain. That is incredibly considerate of you. I'm so happy to know that you are taking care of your best friend Gecko. And the Chief can't stop laughing. He's like, you're doing a wonderful thing. You just keep on doing what you're doing. And Rain says, okay. And Rain goes off and Chief goes off on his day, and he forgets to tell Gecko that he spoke to Rain. And so that night, Gecko, Gecko, Gecko. Now, don't do this with your parents. Don't wake them up night after night. It's not pretty, okay? It's just not a good idea because Chief drags himself over to the window and he says, yes. And Gecko looks at him and says, I can't sleep, says Gecko. Fireflies blinking round my house. You're the chief. Make them stop. Chief says, Gecko, I spoke with the rain. Do you know why rain is making holes in the road every afternoon? And Gecko says, no. And Chief says, well, rain is like a really good friend of yours. And Gecko says, yeah, I know that. We're really good friends. And Chief says, so rain also knows that you love mosquitoes. And so rain's making those holes in the road every afternoon and filling them up with rain so that the mosquitoes have someplace to breed so that you will have something to eat. Oh, says Gecko. You mean if the fireflies stop blinking because buffalo stops leaving piles of manure, because the rain stops making holes, I won't have any mosquitoes to eat? Yeah, says Chief. Yeah, that's pretty much how it is. Yep, that's how it is. See, Gecko, everything's connected. And we all need each other. And sometimes we have to put up with stuff that we don't entirely like because that thing we don't entirely like is connected to something we do like. Oh, says Gecko. Okay. I'm gonna sleep, says Gecko. Fireflies blinking round my house. On and off, their little lights I'll see. I guess that's just how it's got to be. That's right, says Chief. Okay, Chief. See ya. Chief says, bye, Gecko. You're not gonna wake me up tomorrow night, right? And Gecko says, Gecko, Gecko, Gecko. And we are all connected. And because we are all connected, I got to make a new friend named SHRADDHA who has this wonderful story channel. So I'm so happy to share the story of the Grumpy Gecko with you, a folk story from Bali. And come and see my other videos that are on my YouTube channel. I have a YouTube channel called Joanie Calem for Kids. And I have a Joanie Calem channel that's got music more for big people. And every Tuesday, I do a Facebook Live concert at 10:30 in the morning, Columbus, Ohio time. So you have to figure out what time that is wherever you are. And if it's not the middle of the night, come and sing with me. If it's the middle of the night, don't be like Gecko, waking up Chief or your mom and dad. Bye, everybody.